Hey guys, Becky here with Design Bundles, and I'm super excited to have you join me today because we are going to go over another awesome Silhouette Studio tutorial. Today we are introducing you to layers. Okay guys, so here we are in Silhouette Studio, and I'll be honest with you, layers is one of those tools that not a lot of people will ever use. And it's not because it's not useful, but a lot of crafters don't know what layers are as far as using it as a tool. And then also it's an upgraded feature for Designer Edition and higher to be able to use some of the things that we're working with today. So a lot of times if you don't have it unlocked, then it's not something that you know about. So the layers panel, you can find it. It is usually down at the bottom if you have the little expansion toolbar like I do. And it looks like two panels overlaying each other, okay? So when you open layers, it will show you all of the layers that it has automatically calculated for you in Silhouette Studio. Now, it's important to come in here and look at your layers because a lot of times, so we say layer one, layer one, layer one, they're not named. Okay, according to what would make sense according to your file. So you do have the ability to rename them, you have the ability to reorganize them, and then you also have the ability to lock them and to make them visible or invisible. So definitely lots of things that you can do in here. Now let's talk about why you would want to do different things. First of all, if you go ahead and divide your design up by layers, then that means that you can use a feature called cut by layer. Now, if you've ever watched our video on cut by color, then it's very, very similar. And the benefit of doing that is that you can divide up your layers and then separate out which pieces are cardstock, which pieces are pattern paper, which pieces are sketch pen, and you can get them all divided up and create a workflow. So that is one reason, probably one of the main reasons that I recommend layers, just because especially this is useful if you're coming from a machine with software like Cricut Design Space. Cricut will automatically break up your design based on color so that it separates it out into different mats. Now, Silhouette Studio does not have anything like that. And I'll be honest with you, until I used Cricut Design Space, I did not know that that was a thing, but I'll admit that it's actually very convenient. So if you take a few minutes to set your file up the way that it should be set up to use as a workflow, then you can kind of start to see the benefit of doing that. Now, let me just break down this file type for you. This is a handmade card, and we have the card base. Now, when I mean the card base, I just mean the basic outline. This is a piece of pattern paper that will actually slide into these slots here, which I think is really cool. It's a really neat card. It's a neat card format. And I downloaded a whole little bundle of them in Design Bundles. It was a $1 deal, I believe. Just really love it. And then on your card, these black lines are for sketch pens. So I'm going to go and group them together. But the sketch pen design will overlay. Let's just zoom in so you can see. It'll overlay your cut area. And I'm just going to thicken this up so that you can see. It comes out really cool. And of course, I'll show you the finished copy from the card creator whenever we get done. It's a really, really pretty card. But so that's 3 different things. We will be cutting cardstock, we will be cutting pattern paper, and then we will also be using a sketch pen. So 3 different things that we'll be doing. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what we have going on. We have our main title here, of course, just untitled. This is not a saved file that I'm working with, but we have it all grouped under one layer. If you need to determine which layer is which, you can come over here and do the view and unview, the hide and unhide, whatever you want to call it. So this one, I'm not seeing any major differences, but obviously that one I do, so I'm going to leave that one. Okay, so after we take a look at it, you can see that I hid several items, not because they necessarily needed to be hid, but sometimes when designers are working with setting up their files and they may have different types of artwork and it may create unnecessary layers. So if you just go ahead and get those out of the way, then you don't have to worry about it. And I can actually go ahead and delete those. So all I have left, if I go and click on them, I have group 1, which is the sketch pen. All right, I did group that together, remember? Group 2 is this part. The reason that it's grouped is because it is the cut of the card and the perforated line to create a fold line for the card, and then the rectangle, which is the card base. Okay, so we messed with the view and unview. Another thing that you can do, this is really helpful when you're working with a design. Maybe you're designing your own files. And have you ever tried to move something, but yet you keep grabbing the wrong part of the design and it keeps moving out of the way? You can actually lock that. So if I were to lock this layer, then I would be able to move the rectangle wherever I needed to move it, but I actually cannot grab or move the card itself, okay? So especially when I'm setting up sublimation designs where I may be working with several pieces of clip art, and that clip art has a transparent background, then it's really easy to grab the wrong clip art. You can easily grab a piece of clip art that you do not mean to work with. And it can be a frustrating experience. So if you keep your layers open, then you can actually lock those layers and you don't have to worry about it. You can lock it when you're not trying to use it, and then come back and unlock it if you do need to use it in the future. But for now, we will just go ahead and keep those unlocked. And it does not matter where I put these. Let's go ahead and set this up for cutting. I'm going to select my Cameo, and we will just select a 12 by 12 cutting mat, and this is my letter size page here. So I can actually go ahead and arrange these in the top right hand corner. And then actually for the card base, I'm also going to arrange it. Let's bring it to the front just so that we can see it. And I'm just going to arrange everything on top of itself. And that'll make more sense in a moment. So let's go ahead and go back to our layers panel and talk about setting this up in order. So when I talk about in order, you can see that we have sort of a disarray. So what we want to do, or what I prefer to do if I'm developing a workflow, is to give each piece an individual layer and then go ahead and name it appropriately. So I'm going to right click on this main heading here, the Untitled 4, and I'm going to add 2 additional layers. So now I have layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3 at a main level. And now you can rearrange these, and you can drag the group up to be under its own layer. And when you're done, I'm going to delete this extra layer down here because we do not need it anymore. So now we have 3 layers with 3 individual cuts that we will arrange differently. So I can click on it and I can tell by the position of my box over here that that is going to be my pattern paper. So I'm going to rename my layer to say pattern paper. Now you can call these anything you want, but it's just what's going to be easiest for me to remember. So then layer 2 is going to be my sketch pens. So I will rename layer 2 to sketch butterfly. And that leaves my card base here. So I'll rename layer 3 to card base. Okay, so now let's go over to our send panel. And instead of the simple, if you look up here in the top corner, you can see that simple is what defaults. When you are ready to cut by layer, you come over here and select layer. And now you can see that my names that I changed each layer to show up here. So the first step that I'm going to do is I need to decide what order am I going to cut these layers in. For me in particular, I'm going to sketch my butterfly first. So I'm going to drag and drop that into the first slot. Next, I'm going to cut my card base. And then third, I will cut my pattern cardstock. So it's important for my sketch, I am going to sketch that on plain cardstock. And under action, I'm going to select sketch. And then for my card base, it is also plain cardstock, and I'm going to change that to cut. And then for my pattern paper, I'm going to select pattern paper from my drop-down menu, and then I will also change this to cut. Now, everywhere that I layered, that is exactly where it's going to cut and or sketch on the cutting mat. Now what happens if we were to go ahead and send this right now, it would do all 3 of these actions back to back. And that's not what we want, okay? Now I do want it to go ahead and sketch, and then it can go ahead and cut on the same piece, but I want to insert a pause after each layer so that after it sketches, it will pause, and although I won't touch the cutting mat, it'll allow me to remove my sketch pen and insert my cutting blade. and then I can go ahead and allow it to cut the card base. And then we'll have another pause. And what that will do, it'll allow us to leave the blade in, but we will be able to remove the cardstock off the cutting mat and replace it with our pattern paper to cut the card insert that'll go behind the butterfly. Now I did select the material presets here. You saw me do that earlier, but as I'm working my way down, I just wanted to show you, you can actually update any of those that you need to here. So if I click on any of these, you can see, and now it does say no tool detected because I'm not actively hooked up to the Cameo right now to be able to go through and detect those tools, but I can select pen and I do cut with a ratchet blade. And then of course, if I needed to update the blade depth, like for an auto blade, or if I needed to adjust the force or the speed, I can go ahead and take care of that here as well. So guys, let's go ahead and recap. Let's talk about what we have learned here. Now, obviously we learned that we can go through and sort out layers, we can delete layers, we can add layers, we can reorganize layers, we can rename them so that we can cut by layer, we can add the pauses and change out different material types. So there's lots of really, really neat things that you can do. Like I said though, and I don't want to give you the impression that everybody who is an advanced Silhouette user uses cut by layer. They don't. All right, there is a lot of work involved in here, and while it is worth it, it's definitely worthwhile to learn how to do this. It's not something that most crafters use. So I'm hoping that by pushing out a little bit of education, you guys would just at least know that these options are here for you. And I really do believe that once you get the hang of setting up your different cut by layers or even cut by color, don't forget we have a video on that. But once you decide on what works best for you, this is actually a really handy tool for when you're working with multimedia files. This could work with adhesive vinyl, heat transfer vinyl. This is a paper project, anything like that. This really works great, and just definitely practice with it, poke around with it in your software and see what you think. So guys, how did you feel about learning more about layers in Silhouette Studio? Now, learning about layers, it is something that you don't need until you do. So definitely just make sure you compile this information, maybe bookmark the video, because one day it will come in handy, even if that day isn't today, okay? Now, I do love layers. I love using them. They're really, really great for designing, and hopefully you will learn to love them too. But guys, if you have any questions or comments, please make sure you leave those below. I do love to hear from you guys. If you learned something today, give the video a quick like, subscribe, maybe share with a crafty friend. It just helps us to support the channel here and keep bringing you these awesome videos in the future. So I'm going to wrap it up for today, guys, but I really appreciate you stopping by, and we will see you again next time.